Julian Assange is a wanted man.
Mr. Assange?
Wanted by the world's media, American authorities, and more pressingly by Swedish prosecutors. None of them are having much luck. This week, his lawyers were in court arguing that Sweden's request to extradite Assange to face questioning over rape allegations was comprehensively flawed.
And what we've seen is process abuse after process abuse being revealed for hours and hours.
A judgment may be a fortnight away, but it's not just legal assaults that Assange is fending off right now. In recent weeks, he's faced a barrage of highly critical books from former associates, cashing in on his now extraordinary international profile. It's a far cry from when I first caught up with Julian Assange 9 months ago, when the little-known former hacker was backpacking around Europe, running a largely unknown website called Wikileaks. I caught up with Assange again in London during a break in the extradition hearings a few days ago.
Well, thanks for your time, Julian. We've seen a lot of different faces of Julian Assange in the last months, but the suit and the short haircut is new. Is this a new image, or is it courtroom Assange?
Well, it's when you're in this business, people will try and take any point they can to malign you and stop the power of your publication. And so that's, I guess, the same reasons why politicians dress so conservatively when they're under constant attack. And so that's something that I have to do in order to keep the focus on our material and keep the focus off me.
Well, it's been an uphill battle keeping the focus off you. Has it surprised you, the intensity of attention upon you?
I don't think it's surprised me. If you look at if you think about the situation carefully, I suppose that's inevitable. That someone who's associated with a new endeavour that is very controversial and has a lot of very powerful enemies will be the subject of ad hominem attacks on the person if they can't get an attack on the content. But certainly the level of scrutiny and the level of attacks on my person is like nothing else I've experienced, possibly with some exceptions, like nothing else anyone in Australia has experienced.
The current extradition hearings, I know we're yet to hear the final witnesses, but what's been your experience so far? How do you think it's going?
I think a lot has come out into the public domain that wasn't there previously.
That's been a sense of relief to you. You said
that's a sense of relief to me. I mean, because it's an ongoing legal process, it's not something that I can talk about the facts of the matter, and that yet at the same time we have seen other parties, Swedish government, and uncertain individuals.
They're leaking, ironically enough, they're leaking.
They're violating their own laws and feeding out selective bits of the material and selective allegations to the media, where we cannot do that if we are to follow the practice and the law.
Well, however this current situation pans out, it looks like you're going to be in need of a home. Let's rule out the US, possibly rule out Europe for the short term. Is Australia one of your options, or the proper question is, what are your options?
Yeah, I mean the support from the Australian people is very strong. So that to that sense, Australia is a very good option. But as we've seen with the statements, especially last year, by Gillard and McClellan.
Yes, Australia's hardly rolling out the welcome mat for you.
That's right. I mean, on the surface it will all be give the Australian people what they demand. Underneath, it will be give the United States everything it wants. And that's something we see even now with the more recent statements by Gillard.
A hands-off sort of notion.
Pretending to be hands-off. Statements that there is not any more an active investigation by the Australian Federal Police into our activities. That has been cancelled. But we know that under the surface, in fact, there's not an Australian Federal Police investigation, but there is assistance being afforded to the United States. And that is something that really needs to come out. Gillard, McClellan need to disclose all the assistance they have afforded foreign countries against Australians involved in Wikileaks and the Australian registration of Wikileaks as an entity.
Well, why do you think the PM and other ministers are hostile, or apparently hostile to you?
Well, they're co-opted. I mean, the Australian Labor Party has been co-opted in key positions by the United States since 1976.
Well, the WikiLeaks material certainly didn't reflect well upon the Labor Party. Do you think that's effectively showing a well-beaten path from Labor to the American Embassy? Do you think that reflects on their attitude towards you, that they've been embarrassed?
Absolutely. I mean, since the time of Gough, there was a view in Washington that that should never happen again. You should never have a rogue Australian Prime Minister going and inspecting secret bases in Pine Gap and so on. It was not to happen again, and it hasn't happened again.
Do you believe that the Labor government, or the Labor Party, has shown to be compromised in the WikiLeaks material?
It has been compromised, and the failure to remove Mark Adib is an example of that compromise spreading to others in the Labor Party. It is not just this individual. We must remember that back in December, we had a whole of government investigation into us involving ASIS, ASIO, the Australian Federal Police, and parts of Cabinet and the Defence Department. So, I mean, that's just an extraordinary thing. Absolutely extraordinary. I mean, that's more than the United States was doing. It is extraordinary to try and demonstrate such compliance simply because I am an Australian, and therefore the Australian government might in some way be blamed for my activities. And that is completely turned around. All of those have been dropped as a result. All the official investigations have been dropped.
Are you still sensitive, or are you still cautious that Australia would extradite you if there was an American request?
Yes, I think that is still a serious issue.
Do you feel safer in the UK than you do in Australia on that?
I think they're about the same at the moment.
As far as you're aware, has all the relevant material, the WikiLeaks material dealing with Australia, has that been released?
No, there's more coming.
And
you've seen, I mean, in the past few weeks, there's more material coming up.
And what is the nature of that material? How do you read it? What do you think it reveals about Australia?
Well, it's pretty spread spectrum. I mean, it involves a number of different large companies and politics, international politics. I don't want to go into any specific detail, obviously.
You had a blossoming relationship with the New York Times and the Guardian that soured very severely. When did that go off the rails, and briefly, why?
For the Cablegate material, we were in a position last year where we could see that the US intelligence sector as a whole was pulling in favours from every area of the world where we had people located. And we were quite concerned about a sort of mass roundup that would interfere with our ability to publish. As part of that, we gave a backup copy of the material to the Guardian to be used in the event that we were no longer in a position to publish ourselves. We had a written contract with the Guardian.
Yeah.
If they were to look after this backup copy, they could read it, but they were to not publish anything from it. They were to not give it to any other organisation, and they were to store it on a machine that was completely separate from the internet to keep it secure. The Guardian breached every one of those things. although we were in negotiation with other newspapers, it squirreled away an entire copy to the New York Times. It stored the material on internet-connected computer systems where the Chinese intelligence and God knows who could get it, and it published stories on it. And it set all this in motion without telling us.
Well, we're starting to see an impact, certainly in the Middle East, from some of this Wikileaks material. The upheaval in Tunisia has been labelled the Wikileaks revolution. Are you claiming Egypt as well?
Well, we have to be careful here. Of course, the actual revolution is always done by the people of a country, and usually as a result of years and years of abuse, and there's no difference here. But it does seem to be the case that material that we published through a Lebanese newspaper, Al Akbar, was significantly influential to what happened in Tunisia. Perhaps the most important part was that the cable showed that Ben Ali in Tunisia would not necessarily be backed up by the United States. Rather, it was the army that would be supported by the United States. And my suspicion is that that gave the army and people around the army in Tunisia the confidence that they needed to attack the ruling political elite. Additionally, those cables were read by all the surrounding country intelligence agencies and armies, and that would have affected their decisions on whether they should intervene to support Ben Ali in particular ways. And then there's no doubt that Tunisia was the example for Egypt and Yemen and Jordan and all the protests that have happened there.
This is almost textbook WikiLeaks theory. You've always said if information was available, there would be a political flow on. I mean, you must be sort of ticking your boxes here going, there would be an impact. There's an impact.
I mean, it's extremely gratifying. Yes, I mean, I've had all these troubles in London, but to see this happening elsewhere is, worth every cent of time wasted on the other thing.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, John.
Okay. Thanks.
Ticking your boxes here, going, there would be an impact. There's an impact.
I mean, it's extremely gratifying. Yes, I mean, I've had all these troubles in London, but to see this happening elsewhere is, worth every cent of time wasted on the other thing.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, John.